Welcome to another workshop offered by the Office of Work Life at the University of Kentucky. Today we will be featuring our November monthly workshop, which is a part of our virtual series where we offer a workshop once a month related to work life issues and concerns and just daily life. And today we're going to be talking about successfully navigating today's complex workplace. And we have our speaker today, Natalie Lindgren, who is the manager of our Human Resources Training and Development Department. Thank you, Natalie, for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Izetta. Okay, so good afternoon. It is now officially afternoon, and I'm excited to be here with you all today. I was thankful that my human resources colleague, Izetta Beatty, reached out to me to see if I could join. We want to today, as Izetta said, talk about the complex workplace and how to hopefully successfully navigate it. And so, as Izetta said, I'm Natalie Lindgren. I am one of the managers here in Human Resources Training and Development. And we'll talk a little bit about training and development as we get into this workshop. Some of you may be familiar with some of what we do. I see some familiar names out there, and some of you may have been like, I didn't even know UK had a training and development department. So hopefully this will be beneficial for all of you. But like Izetta said, we're going to talk about successfully navigating today's complex workplace. And as you all know, organizations are just increasingly more complicated as industries evolve. And these days, it is the norm to have a complex and diverse workforce. People of all generations are working together as one. There are people from different backgrounds, so not even necessarily generational, but people coming from different backgrounds, all at the same institution. And you may be asking yourself, well, okay, big deal. That's just life. That's what we do, which is true. And it is good. Having different and diverse colleagues is what helps any organization become whole. But what we're finding is that leaders are finding that it is increasingly difficult to manage in a complex workplace effectively. And employees, so whether or not you're a supervisor, but employees are encountering some of these same difficulties, maybe with their coworkers or colleagues and team members due to all of the complexities. So with such a diverse group of employees, there are bound to just be certain, I'm going to use the word problems, but certain problems that may arise or occur. Supervisors and their direct reports may not have effective communication. And the same can be true of peer-to-peer communication. It's easy for misunderstandings to occur and for employees who are at all levels to just become disengaged with the work that they're doing. So although navigating a complex workplace is challenging, it can also be very rewarding. But the key is to find solutions that can help you get the best out of the people with whom you work, whether or not you're a supervisor. So today we're going to talk about some tips to help improve your interpersonal skills, your interpersonal relationships that will ultimately help create a better workplace and increase employee engagement in such a complex work environment. So we're actually going to start out talking about your generation. And we do have a class, and I'll reference this in a little bit, called Generations in the Workplace. And some of you may have taken that before. This is not what this workshop is. We are not going to go into major detail about the generations. We're just going to do some high level talking about the generations because it's really helpful to understand some of the background of each group. So what I have listed here are the 5 generations that make up the workplace today. And with each generation, the dates that are listed or the years that are listed, those are their birth years. And some of this, you may see some research that has maybe some different birth years listed. That's okay. Different research will say different things, but these are just the basics that we're going to talk about. And they also may have different titles for each generation. So regardless of what you're used to calling them or the birth years that you're used to, this is just what we're going to go with today. They're all pretty similar, but we do have 5 generations that are making up today's workplace, which that's a lot. That is a lot of people from a lot of different time frames. And so we start out, and I'll just go kind of from left to right and then down. So you have the matures or the silent generation, and then you've got your baby boomers. And then we have Generation X, or Gen X is what I'll probably refer to it here. Then you have your millennials. They are also known as Gen Y, but here we've just got millennials listed. And then Generation Z, or Gen Z, and those are the newest, that is the newest generation that is coming up into the workplace today. They're still, you can see from their years, 1997 to around 2012. So they're going to be the youngest in the generations that are out here. And I see that Daleen has asked, could everyone put in the chat which generation you are? So actually what I want to do, Daleen, you are reading my mind. I want to post a poll to see which generation we have, or which generations we have represented. So you can put it in the chat if you're comfortable with that, or if you're okay just answering the poll. And then I can broadcast those results. Either way is totally fine. And I'm looking at our numbers. So I think I have broadcasted. Yeah, we've got some numbers coming in, so I'll share those in a minute. I do see we've got a mix. It looks like we've got 18 people who have answered. I'm going to go ahead and end that and share the results. So this is not surprising to me that we're a pretty good mix of Gen X and Gen Y, or the millennials. And then we've got some baby boomers out there, and then we don't have any representing Gen Z or what we're calling matures, or the silent generation. And then, so Wendy's got a question out there. What if your work ethic doesn't classify your generation? So I may need you to share a little more about that. But what I do want to say is, when we do talk about the generations, just because I may fall into a specific generation, it doesn't mean that I fit all of the, I'm going to use stereotypes, and it's based on research, but all of the stereotypes that go along with those generations. So I do want to be clear with that. But looks like we've got some baby boomers, Gen X, and the millennials, or Gen Y, represented here today. And so that's just kind of a fun poll to do, see who we've got here. But honestly, regardless of your generation, it's important that we all just get along, right? Well, what we want to do is take a look at what makes some of the generations unique, so that way we can hopefully better communicate with them. Before we do that, I do want to show a slide, if I can, there we go. So this slide shows as of 2022, so that's the data that we have available from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. We've got 2012 and 2022 listed, so a 10-year gap. This shows the percentage of each generation that is represented in the workplace. And so you can see the matures and then the baby boomers have had significant declines. Well, that's likely due to retirement. So as baby boomers are retiring, then we've got Gen X, and they've stayed almost consistent. They've gone down a little bit from 2012 to 2022. And then the millennials obviously are growing. And then you can see we've got Generation Z there on the end, because they have just recently entered the workplace. Couple things I want to point out here is the Gen X, and you're probably familiar with this, but the Gen X generation is smaller, significantly smaller than the baby boomers and the millennials. So that's why the Gen X numbers are just always going to be lower, because it's just a smaller generation based on the years that are listed. So this is from 2012 to 2022. And then what I also want to show you is a projected slide. And this again comes from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so we've got the projection for 2032. And obviously, matures and boomers and Gen X are decreasing. And by 2032, more Gen Xers, excuse me, will likely start retiring or be retired. Millennials has dropped off just a little bit, and you can see Gen Z has majorly boosted because more and more of them will be in the workplace. What you'll also notice is there is now a sixth generation listed, and that's Gen Alpha. We do not have any information, or at least I don't have any information from any research I've done on Gen Alpha, because that's 10 years to go before they really start entering the workplace. So we just haven't gotten there yet. But it's interesting to see how the workplace is going to shift a little bit based on generations. And in 2032, which is really, it's 10 years away, we're going to see more of the millennials, and they already are, but more of the millennials in the supervisory and leadership roles, and then Gen Z coming up right along behind them. And so these are just fun stat slides to show, just so you can see how the workforce is comprised based on generations. But what I really want to talk about here is just some high-level overviews of what makes the generations different. So as we look at this slide, and I actually took this, some of this information was from what we have in one of our workshops, Generations in the Workplace, and I got some other information from Purdue Global. But what we have here is the 5 generations that are in the workplace today listed across the top. And then on the left side in that column, we have some descriptors listed, or no, we have a row that says descriptors, but we have some information to show, for example, what each generation was shaped by, what they're motivated by, their preferred communication style, and then, like I said, descriptors. And again, this is not necessarily that if you fit in one specific generation that, oh yeah, that is you. These are generalities based on research. But what it does is it helps you potentially better understand your colleagues, your coworkers, your team members who may fall within these generations as to why they are the way they are. So things that you're shaped by. So for the matures, from the Great Depression and World War II, and then the baby boomers, Vietnam, the civil rights movement, and Watergate. Those were some really huge events that took place during their time frame. Generation X, the AIDS epidemic. And I'll tell you, I fall within the Gen X category. And what is listed here, these were really influential in my life. So the AIDS epidemic, the Berlin Wall coming down, and the dot-com boom. And then for millennials, Columbine, the 9/11, obviously, which I know shaped a lot of people, but for millennials in particular, 9/11. And then, of course, the internet. And then Gen Z, well, it's life after 9/11. They don't really remember life before 9/11, what it was like. Of course, they had the Great Recession, and then they are technology natives. Motivation. I'm not going to go over all of that. You can read what they're motivated by based on the research. But communication style, I do want to touch on that. So for matures, it has listed their personal. And what is meant by personal is it could be face-to-face. It could just mean verbal, like actual speaking. It could be written. And by written, not necessarily an email, but a card or a letter. Then I found it interesting for baby boomers and Gen X, it's whatever's most efficient. And I'll be honest, I fall within that. I'm good with email. I'm good with face-to-face. I'm good with texting, instant messaging. I'm good with phone. However, I bet if we asked for a show of hands, there'd be a lot less phone calls going on these days, because we're moving on to instant messaging and text and email. And it is interesting also to me that Gen Z, they're very much like the millennials, instant messaging, text, but then instead of email, it is social media, which for the workplace, probably not. We need to be careful there, obviously. And I see, Daleen, you prefer face-to-face or phone. Yeah, I really do like face-to-face myself. It's just funny. I just don't get very many phone calls anymore. The phone just does not ring that often. Or if it is a phone call, it's a video chat versus just me picking up my phone, which is fine for me. Then we've got the descriptors that are listed there. And so that's just interesting to see. Again, these are generalities. Just because your generation doesn't have something listed, it doesn't mean you aren't that way. And we can all sway. I know I can. I joke with some of my team members that I may be a little more of a baby boomer than I am a Gen Xer in some regards. And I've got a colleague on my team who we are the same age, and she's more of a millennial than she is a Gen Xer. So these are really just things to keep in mind to help you as you are working with your colleagues, just to see what is it that works well for that particular colleague and what works well for me. So that way we can have just stronger communication. And so, Daylene, I like that you say you're a boomer and these do describe you. Yeah. Mine pretty much describe me as well as a Gen Xer. They certainly do. So some of them, they may be spot on for you. So what I want to go on and talk about here is the multi-generational team. And there's a quote here, and hopefully you all can still hear me because they are mowing the lawn right outside my window, of course. But we have a quote here by Lindsay Pollock, and it says, "The longer I study generations in the workplace, the more similarities I find in what people want out of work. Those fundamentals, so meaning, purpose, good leaders, and professional growth, those don't change. What changes is how each generation expresses these needs and what expectations we have about our employers' fulfillment of them." So what that actually really means to me is people want to succeed, they want to feel valued, they want to have a sense of belonging. And I think pretty much every person wants that, regardless of your generation. Be successful, feel valued, and have a sense of belonging. So what that really means is in the workplace and in life in general, but in the workplace, we need to have an understanding and we need to respond to the human factor. The human factor is where the challenge is. Everybody is unique, everybody is different, and they bring different things to the table, and it's important that they do, but we need to be able to respond to that to meet people where they are, and that can be really hard. Another thing that, and I went one slide too far, but that is okay. Another thing that comes into this, other than generations, is your personality styles. So Dr. William Marston, he formed a theory many, many years ago of preferred behaviors and temperaments. And he found that people generally tend to fall within one of four styles. And I am sure that a lot of you are familiar with DISC, so DISC. So, and it's what has, from his studying, it evolved into what is now known as the DISC model of behavioral styles. Like I said, everyone is unique, but each of us really does have a preferred style of behavior. So knowing generational differences and similarities is really helpful in the workplace with your colleagues, but also knowing these styles can help you gain insight on how and why people feel and act the way they do. So I want to look a little more closely at each of these four behavioral areas. So with DISC, it stands for dominant, influencer, steady, and complier. And each of those, you can think of them as being in a quadrant. So on the left side, the dominant personality style and the complier personality style, they're much more task oriented. Whereas on the right side, for influencers and steadies, they are more relationship oriented. Then you've got the top and the bottom quadrants. So compliers and steady, tend to be more introverted or reserved, and then dominants and influencers tend to be more extroverted or forceful. And I want to hone in a little bit on the introvert extrovert. Introvert does not mean somebody is shy. An extrovert does not necessarily mean that somebody likes to be the life of the party all the time. So what it really means is introverted people, they find their energy internally. They do a lot more processing in the mind versus extroverts who find their energy externally. They find their energy with being with people. They prefer to let others know their thoughts. Within each of these categories or quadrants, I'll say, we've got little phrases that match each of the four styles. So dominants, they are a let's get it done. Influencers are more, okay, let's get everybody involved. Steadies are, hey, let's everybody kind of get along and let's go with it. And then compliers are, okay, we got to get it right. And so I can tell you this, having taken the DISC assessment, and I see Sarah's question, are UK employees able to get their DISC assessment scores for free, or is there a cost? So I'll touch on that in just a moment, Sarah, but I want you to know I saw your question, and it is a fantastic question. Having done a DISC assessment myself, I come up as a complier. And it is absolutely true. I want to get it right. I am very task oriented. However, I am not a complete complier as far as behavioral styles go, because I am a little more extroverted than I am introverted, not a whole lot, but I'm actually a little closer to what I would say is an influencer, but I'm definitely a complier. So you can have tendencies from both of those, certainly, or three of them, really. Dominance, I will say this, sometimes get a bad rap because I think, oh, well, they're really pushy. They're not mean, they're not pushy. They're just, hey, let's get this done. Everybody needs someone who can say, let's move this project along. You need all four behavioral styles to make for a good team. The point here is for us to begin to recognize verbal and nonverbal clues that people are sending us all the time, whether it's based on their generation and what shaped them and what motivates them, or it could be based on their personality styles. It's important for us to know those or get a good feel for those so that we can be better communicators. And so to Sarah's question, UK employees, to my knowledge, there is no free DISC assessment that they can take. There are all kinds of quizzes that are online. You can go out to the internet and find one. HR training and development. Now, right now, we're not able to offer it just due to some changes on our team. But we, in the future, will begin offering again the DISC assessment. And there is a fee that goes along with it. We do it for what I'll call intact teams. So we don't do it individually, but it would be for a group of people who work together on a team or department. And we do a workshop with it, because it's one thing to know your personality style or your behavior style, but it's another thing to know what to do with that and how to interact with other people. So there is a workshop that comes along with that. And the cost, it depends. There's a lot of different things that depends on. And so I'd be happy, Sarah, to talk to you offline about that, because there's just different things that can depend on. But if anybody has questions about the DISC assessment, you're welcome to email train@uky.edu. It's just TRAIN at uky.edu. Now, we do also offer a class that is called Personality Differences, where we call it DISC Light, where we have an assessment that we send out to you electronically during the class, but it is not the full DISC report, but it's based on DISC, so it's very similar, and there is not a charge for that one, but we do a workshop with that as well. But it really is helpful, to Sarah's point, to do this for your teams, if possible, because you get to know them a little bit better, know what makes them click, why they respond the way they respond, for any tasks that come their way. So it really is helpful. And thank you, Zeta, for putting that in there. It's train@uky.edu. And I do have a slide at the end that will show you our different contact information, but we'd be happy to talk to you about that. So communication is key. So what I want you to do is think back just a couple slides ago to the slide, and I know it's smaller on here, but the multi-generational team. Think back to what it was that people want. They want to succeed, they want to feel valued, and they want to have a sense of belonging. And then we also talked about communication styles for each of the generations. And now I have this listed here a little bit differently than it was on the original slide, but I have the communication styles listed based on the generations and what they preferred. Now, what I want to do here, I'm going to open up another poll, and this is a multiple choice, so you can select as many as you want. But what I want you to do is in the poll, I want you to vote to tell us, how do you like to communicate at work? So it might be different at home, but at work, what do you prefer? So I'm going to just leave this open here just for a minute, because you can select multiple. And there is a reason for my madness, and we'll talk about it here in a minute. Okay, looks like we are good. So I'm going to share those results, and looks like we've got a good mix. And the winners are, I'm going to say winners because it's got 50%. So we've got personal, whether it's verbal or written. And then we also have instant messaging and chat, also at 50%. And I would say I'm right there. Verbal, written, I like that. And I know written can also be email. Oh, email, 64%. I don't know how I overlooked that one. Email's probably my favorite one because it's what I am the most used to. And maybe that's because I'm a Gen Xer and email was brand new as I was coming up. And I was like, what is this email thing? I remember, I'm sorry, side note, my college roommate told me that she got a Hotmail account. And I was like, what on earth are you talking about? I had no idea what that meant. And she's like, oh, well, it's email. And I said, okay, what do you do? So she explained it to me. And I'm like, well, why would you do that? Why don't you just pick up the phone and call or write a letter? Writing a letter, I think, has gone by the wayside. Sorry, I just had to share that story about myself. But now email was probably my most effective way of communicating. But I think instant messaging, so chat, would also be right up there for me. Basically, I do fit the Gen X rule of whatever's the most efficient, whatever's easiest, whatever's best. So it's interesting just to see the mix here in this session. I will stop sharing that. Okay, there we go. So regardless of generation or personality style, people are unique and they receive information in different ways. Some really like to have direct communication. And by direct, I mean, tell me what you want. Just tell me what you want me to do, or tell me how you want to do this, and I will get it done. Tell me what you need to have done. Others need more time to connect. And when I say that, they still may say, okay, tell me what needs to get done, but let's talk about it. Let's process this together. And yet others may prefer in writing so they can read everything and then address it all at once. So maybe they prefer, hey, there's some big task that needs to get done. Can you send it to me in an email? That way I can read it. I can reread it, figure out, what questions I may have, and I can get back with you and we can go from there. So we need to remember to respond to that human factor and meet people where they are with communication. And so I think everybody needs to be able to be open to improving your own communication skills. So whether it is with a colleague, whether it's if you're a supervisor and it's your direct report, or maybe it's a customer or a patient or a student or a parent, they all deserve to receive clear communication so they know what the expectations are, and then they can respond accordingly. Communication is a two-way street. And so what I mean by that is, I mean, obviously when you're communicating, there's at least one other person there with you. You may be talking back and forth, emailing, chatting, texting, whatever it might be. But you also need to remember to be a good listener. So find out what their communication style is, and then be able to listen to what they're saying to you. Because listening, actively listening, truly paying attention shows that you understand their needs, you understand their wants, you understand where they're coming from. And ultimately, it shows them that you care. So the human factor, again, it is the challenge, but it is the most important part of navigating this complex workplace. We've talked a little bit about technology. I shared with you my very sad email story of what is it and like, why would you use it? And now that's what I use all the time. But utilizing technology for efficiency and engagement is important. And I realize, obviously, we all know how to use technology. We are here in a Zoom meeting right now. I dare say a few years ago, prior to COVID in 2020, I'm sure some of us still use Zoom, but not nearly like we're using it today. I would get on a few Zoom calls, a few Zoom calls here and there. And in my mind, I'm like, yeah, this is great, but I could just pick up the phone. And now we use it all the time. On my team, we use Microsoft Teams for our team meetings, because we have people who, some people are working on site, some people work remotely. Technically on our team, we have a hybrid schedule where we have some days where we're here in our office space, and then some days we're working from home, and it varies depending on what's going on. So, oh yeah, and Skype for business. Used to use Skype, and now I've completely moved to Zoom or Teams this year. And so I want to talk a little bit though about that hybrid or remote work, because that has added a huge complexity to the workplace. And I know probably not everybody who is in this workshop today works remotely, and maybe you never did, because at the University of Kentucky, we're huge. And of course, we have a huge healthcare component, and those employees could not work remotely because of the nature of their job. So we do have people here at UK who still work on site 100%, or student or employees who are completely student facing. They've got to be on site. But there are areas where they maybe can be remote, or they can be hybrid, like my team, we're hybrid. And this year, UK actually implemented some remote work guidelines. Work location guidelines is what they're called. They implemented those last March, but that is only for positions that could potentially be eligible for hybrid or remote work. Not every job is eligible for that. Not every job can be done that way. But in these types of situations, technology is a must, because we have to be able to communicate with our team members and our colleagues who may be off-site while I'm on-site, and vice versa. And so there is a question in chat. So I'm not familiar with instant messaging. Is it part of Microsoft Teams? Yes. So Microsoft Teams, and that's what I have called chat here on this slide, is chat, but it's really instant messaging. Microsoft Teams is great for chat, but it actually does a lot more than that, which I'll get into a little bit later. And it is provided by UK. So I'll put it out there like that. But our communication has got to stay solid, especially with this complexity of hybrid or remote work, because we still have jobs to do. Every department here at UK has a job that has to get done for the betterment of students, or of faculty or staff, or the Commonwealth. And so using technology is a must. And so I have on the slide, of course, email, which I think probably most of us are pretty good with email. Chat, which we've just talked about. Of course, there's the phone, but even the phone, now all of my calls come through Microsoft Teams. I have my desk phone set up, so that way, and ITS can help you with that potentially, but I have my desk desk phones set up to ring right through Microsoft Teams. And so that way, whether I am working on site and I can physically pick up my telephone, that's great. But if I'm working from home, the call comes straight through my computer and I can answer it from home. So I'm not missing any calls. Also for meetings, like this, without Zoom, we wouldn't be able to do this meeting. And we're now able to reach people who are UK employees who aren't even in Lexington. We have UK employees all across the state, and actually we have them in other states. But even think about the College of Agriculture, they have employees in every county. And so now we are able to meet with them and collaborate with them much better by use of technology. But we have to learn how to use it and we have to embrace it. And that can be hard. I am not a technology native, obviously, by my email story I shared. I am learning all the time how to use technology better. I also have document sharing listed here on this slide because and what I mean by document sharing is not just emailing a document back and forth, but what we do on our team here in training and development, we have documents that are shared amongst different team members for different topics, but they are online. And I could go into a document and be in there at the same time as one of my other colleagues. We could be making edits, notes, etc., all at the same time. You don't have to keep clicking save and sending it back and forth. It's like SharePoint. We use that on SharePoint, and it's so convenient. But we have to be open to using those technologies. And oh, Daylene, you say you've got employees. That's a lot of different states. So technology is a must for that. So, like I said, navigating the complex workplace can be made a lot easier by incorporating a few of the tips or topics that we've talked about today. So getting to know some of the generational components of your team members, getting to know their personality styles or their behaviors, and of course, using technology. But I didn't go into a lot of detail on any of this because it would be information overload. And I could talk to you for hours, and I am not kidding, for hours on the use of, I'll say, technology or generations or effective communication. But I don't have to because we have a lot of different training workshops within human resources training and development that I want to point out to you. Trust me, I'm not going to go over every workshop we have. That'd be way too much. But I do want to give you just a quick overview of what HR training and development can offer that can help you as you're navigating a complex workplace. So in training and development, we basically have 6 units. On the left-hand side, you'll see it has My UK Learning and Performance Evaluation. So we kind of are the front face, I'll say, of My UK Learning, which is the learning management system. That's what we use, or that's what people use to take web-based trainings. It's also what people will use to sign up to attend different workshops, whether it's by training and development, or it could be healthcare. It could even be in your own department. We have different colleges who put training in My UK Learning. Every year, we do performance evaluations. Some people do it even more frequently. They may do them quarterly or twice a year. And so we have people who support that performance process. We also run and administer university new employee orientation, which is 100% online. It is all through My UK Learning. But what I really want to focus on is what's on the right-hand side of the screen, because each of these departments offers many, many workshops that can help you in your overall professional development. We do have one unit that's actually called professional development, but all of these will help you with your professional development in some form or fashion. And so we have mostly instructor-led training. And so instructor-led, it's live, just like this is here today. This is live. We do it virtually. We actually use Adobe Connect versus Zoom because it's actually a training platform. So it works better for training needs. But our virtual trainings are highly interactive. So you all have been putting some stuff in chat here, which is fantastic. In our virtual training, it's a lot of conversation, a lot of chat. We have breakout sessions sometimes depending on the class where you can actually talk versus just chatting. We have them regularly scheduled in My UK Learning, usually 4 to 6 months in advance. They vary in length from 90 minutes up to 4 hours, and you can register to attend in My UK Learning. We do also offer in-person training, but that is by request for groups of people. We used to almost exclusively offer in-person, and then I'll say post-COVID, I know COVID is still there, but once things settled down a little bit, we found that fewer people were coming to our in-person classes because virtual was just much more accessible. And it took less time because they didn't have to walk over or drive to campus and come to Scoville Hall. So we offer everything virtually, and then we will do in person by request. We do have some web-based training, and it's on demand 24/7, and you can access that in My UK Learning. But we do have 3 areas. We've got university supervision, professional development, and then technology training. And so university supervision, it is required for all new supervisors at UK. It will be assigned to any new supervisor within My UK Learning. However, the courses are available for all employees to take through My UK Learning. You can just go out and register to attend one, or you can take one of the web-based trainings. Even if you've taken them before, feel free to register and come again. Specifically, I want to point out a few of the classes that would be really helpful based on the topic we're doing today of navigating a complex workplace. So we've got supervision, employee coaching and development, supervision performance evaluation, supervision personality differences, and that is based on the DISC assessment. Then we also have a couple of web-based trainings. We have creating effective teams, and we have key skills for delegation. So particularly if you're a supervisor, those may be really helpful and beneficial to you to take again if you've already taken them, just as a refresher. And thank you, Kimberly, for the call out. You've taken several software training classes in Adobe Connect and enjoyed them. Greatly appreciate that. And same to you, Sarah. Next, I do want to actually go into our technology classes. So we have a technology training unit, and they offer training on some software that is Adobe and some that is Microsoft. So UK has contracts with both Adobe and Microsoft. We certainly do not train all of the applications that go along with those because, I mean, it would be never ending. But you can see the Adobe that we offer and the number of courses. So for example, for Photoshop, we actually offer 3 courses. And you might be thinking, well, why would I need Photoshop? Well, some people need it for their jobs, but it's also, we look at this as a benefit for employees, just like we have other benefits like this, like what Azetta is doing today, this workshop that is a benefit. It's a free benefit for employees to come attend it. Same thing with Photoshop and all of the training, by the way. I do want to call out a few specific topics that relate to navigating a complex workplace. So Microsoft 365, you may have heard it called Office 365, but it's actually changed to Microsoft 365. That, I'm going to be very generic in this. You may have heard of OneDrive. So OneDrive or SharePoint, things like that. Microsoft 365 is where you can save documents out in the cloud, basically, and they are accessible wherever you go. Of course, you have to sign in. It's safe, I promise, but it's different than saving it maybe to your desktop or to your actual computer hard drive. So super beneficial with this complex workplace. Also, Outlook. You may be thinking, oh, I know the basics of Outlook. I know how to send emails. But I will tell you, we've got 2 Outlook classes, and they can share with you some tips and tricks that I think will be very beneficial for you in using email. And then we do have a class on Microsoft Teams. And so if you've not used Teams before, you may want to go out and register to attend the Microsoft Teams training. Now, we actually do the training in Adobe Connect, but towards the end of the class, we actually get out of Adobe Connect and then create a meeting in Microsoft Teams so you can see it in action. But if you've never used Teams before, I highly recommend going out and taking a look at that class or registering for that class. And then the last area I want to talk about is our what we call professional development unit. We have 20, 21, 22 classes that are based on 10 different competencies that you see listed here on the screen, from communication, professionalism, leadership, change, teamwork. All of these are going to be beneficial to you as you are navigating the workplace and the complexities that come along. We have a program that is called the Essential Leader Program, and I do see some names in here that are familiar to me. So I think we've got some folks in this session who have come through our Essential Leader Program. And you don't have to be a supervisor to come through the program, because everybody is a leader in their own right. But for those who want to improve their skills in leadership, or just in navigating the complexities of the workplace, I highly recommend registering for the Essential Leader Program. You can do that in My UK Learning. Or if you don't want to take the whole program, but there are a lot of classes that look interesting to you, I highly recommend just taking those classes one at a time, or whichever ones you want. You do not have to be in the Essential Leader Program to take any of these classes. I have highlighted several of the classes that I think fit very well with this topic. Oh, and thank you, Daleen, and thank you, Kimberly, for your shout outs. Oh, and Elizabeth for the Essential Leader Program. Appreciate that. I promise I did not set this up beforehand, so that is all of their own free will. But you can see these classes that I've highlighted that I think would be super helpful for people to take, related to the complexities of this complex workplace. I'm telling you, I'm stumbling over my words. I think I might need to take presentation principles again. So, but truly, we offer so many different workshops: technology, supervisory, and just basic professional development that I think can be very beneficial to you. All of these are free. There is not a cost for any one of these workshops. You can register to take them in My UK Learning, or you can take, if they are web-based, you can just go ahead and take those anytime you want. We do also offer, I'm just going to point this out, a program called the Experienced Leader Academy, and we are just finishing up the academy for the fall. Actually, our next session, or our last section, is next Wednesday. We're not sure if we're going to be able to offer it this coming spring or not. We might. We're just going to have to play that by ear. We've had some changes on the team. There is a fee for the Experienced Leader Academy. And thank you, Daleen. I appreciate that call out. But it's based on a book, Leadership from the Inside Out by Kevin Cashman. There's 8 chapters in the book, and so there's technically 9 sessions. The first session is an intro, and then we have a session per chapter. But this certainly can help you in your leadership development. So I've talked about My UK Learning a little bit, and so for those of you who aren't familiar with it, you can access it from Employee Self-Service tab and just select the My UK Learning link. And actually, you have to select it 2 times, but once you do, you'll get a screen that looks like what I have up here, or it'll look similar, where it says Good Afternoon, and you can just select the tile that I have outlined that says My Learning. It'll take you into My UK Learning, where you can go, there's a tile out there that says Find Learning, and you can search for class title names and register to attend or take a web-based training. So I just wanted to show this to you. And then the last slide before we put our contact information out there is, I just want you to think about, what are your development goals? How well do you think you're navigating today's complex workplace? And what action steps will you take today to move forward? I think it's always important to end any type of workshop like this with some action steps. And only you know what you need, but I highly recommend, as Etta said, she'll send out the slide deck, but going back, taking a look at it, or going out to our website, which I've got the QR code for it out here. Of course, you'll get the slides as well. But going out to our website and taking a look at the different training that we offer. And if you have any questions about anything I've discussed today, the best thing to do is just email train@uky.edu. Or you can email me directly, which is fine. I don't have my email address on here, but it's just natalie.lindgren@uky.edu. We also have email addresses out here for our different units. So if you've got a technology training question, you can email TechTrain. Not only do they offer training, but they will consult with you as well. So if you can't attend a full training, but you're like, oh, wait, can you help me? I'm having an issue using Outlook, trying one specific thing, email them. They will help you. And then, of course, university new employee orientation, university supervision. If you've got questions about that program, feel free to email them. And then any My UK Learning questions in general. If you're having an issue using My UK Learning, you can email our learning and performance team. So with that, I don't actually have an ending slide that says questions, but I'm going to throw that out there. Does anybody have any questions that I can hopefully try to answer, or any comments?